You think it's over. But somewhere deep inside you, a part refuses to believe it. You keep replaying the scenes, feeling the pain, asking yourself, why did this happen to me? What if I told you that what you just went through wasn't a punishment, but a heavenly enclosure? What if all that silence, those losses, those nights when you thought you'd been forgotten, were actually the exact moment when Allah said, your file is closed. You'll never go through this again. You see, there are trials that never come back. Not because they're over, but because they've fulfilled their purpose in your soul. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear now will make you understand why it's truly over. There are times in life when the whole world falls silent, when even your heartbeat seems to fade into a distant echo. You no longer feel the same intensity. You no longer cry like before. You no longer ask with the same words. It's not that you've stopped believing. It's just that something inside you has become exhausted. You've reached the end of your supplication, the end of your patience, the end of your pain. And now, there's nothing left but silence. This silence isn't empty. It has a weight. It envelops you. It observes you. It confronts you with yourself. It doesn't answer. It doesn't reassure. It doesn't promise anything. And yet, somewhere in this invisible silence, something is happening that you don't yet see. Because Allah's silence is never forgetfulness. It's a disguised answer. An answer your heart isn't yet ready to understand. You see, sometimes you want everything explained now. You want signs. You want certainties. You want pain to serve as something clear, visible. But Allah often acts in a way that human words cannot convey. He speaks to you in calm, in waiting, in slowness. He speaks to you through absence, because it's the only language your soul hears when everything is falling apart. And when you think He's no longer listening to you, that's precisely when He is closest. But you can't feel it yet, because your heart is saturated with fear, regret, exhaustion. So Allah grants you the greatest of remedies, silence. He removes the noises of this world so that you can hear what your soul has never had the courage to face. He silences the voices around you, those that influence you, that lead you astray, that tell you what to feel. And in this inner desert, you find yourself alone. But this alone is not a punishment. It is an invitation. An invitation to meet yourself, really. How many times have you prayed without really listening to yourself? How many times have you spoken to Allah without inner silence, simply to fill a void you refuse to look at? Silence is that moment when you can no longer run away. When you realize that your hope was not always pure, that sometimes you asked less out of love than out of fear of loss. And Allah, in His wisdom, brings you back to where it all begins, with a naked heart, stripped of all illusion. You thought this silence meant your call hadn't been heard. But in truth, it's in that moment that Allah closes a chapter you couldn't seem to close. A chapter where you were fighting for something that was distancing you from Him without even realizing it. There are pains that He doesn't heal right away, because they're still teaching you. But there are also pains that He suddenly extinguishes without you knowing why. You wake up one morning, and what made you cry the day before no longer burns. You don't know when it happened or how. You just feel that it's over. And this over isn't the result of chance. It's an invisible decree, a heavenly decision. It is Allah who says to your soul, you no longer need to carry this. You have understood what you needed to understand, but you know what? Even when that moment arrives, you don't always recognize it. You continue to seek out the pain, to revisit it, as if it still defines who you are. Because you have become accustomed to suffering. You have become attached to this struggle, to this ordeal, to this version of yourself. And that's when Allah gives you one last test. He confronts you with your own attachment to suffering. He asks you, without words, without signs, will you trust me even when I free you? Or will you prefer to remain in what destroyed you? You see, most people don't realize that Allah's silence is sometimes a response of mercy. He no longer speaks to you about the problem because it is already resolved in the invisible. It's no longer your business. The case is closed, even if your heart hasn't yet accepted the verdict. And when you understand this, you feel a strange peace. Not a peace that instantly erases the pain, but a peace that teaches you to no longer need to understand. Silence then becomes a shelter, a sacred space where your soul finally rests, after chasing for so long things that weren't meant for you. That's when everything begins to change, slowly, imperceptibly. Weights lift, fears lighten, prayers become truer, simpler. You no longer ask when or why, you simply say, I trust you, even in your silence. And it's at that precise moment that something invisible awakens above you.
Imagine a place your eyes cannot see. A place where everything you've experienced is recorded, noted, counted. Every tear, every sigh, every prayer whispered in the night. This place is not on earth. It has no walls, no borders, but it exists. It is where the stories are found that humans forget, but that heaven never forgets. Your name is written there. Not your face, not your status, not your past. Your name, your soul, your essence. And beside it, a line, a specific trial. One that only you could bear. One that others would never have endured. One that Allah entrusted to you, because He knew that your heart, despite its flaws, had the capacity to endure. And so, the story begins. And in this story, you experience things you don't understand. Losses, disappointments, separations, betrayals. You ask why? Again and again. You exhaust yourself trying to find a meaning. But in the celestial record, each moment already has a precise purpose. Each pain has a purpose that you, as yet, ignore. You only see the surface, the wound, the injustice. But above, something is written. The angels note your patience, your restraint, your silence, your invisible efforts. They see when you choose the good despite anger, when you hold your tongue, when you continue to pray even though you no longer have the strength. And every small act you believe to be useless becomes a luminous line in your record. You think no one notices what you are going through, that everything you do goes unnoticed. But up above, nothing goes unnoticed. Every beat of your heart in pain becomes a testimony. Every tear shed unseen becomes an argument for your deliverance. And then, one day, in that invisible place, the order comes, silent but decisive. A word that changes everything. Close this file. My servant has gone through what he had to go through. No trumpet sounds. No visible sign descends from the sky, but your soul feels it. A new lightness. A different breath. You don't understand why, but what destroyed you yesterday no longer controls you today. What obsessed you is slowly fading away.
The things that haunted you are losing their power. It's not that you've become numb. It's just that Allah has removed the pain from your heart because the lesson is complete. You see, every trial has a mission. It comes, settles in, shapes you, tears away a part of yourself. And when it has accomplished its mission, it leaves. Not because everything is fine now, but because you are no longer the same. You no longer react as before. You no longer seek the same things. You have understood that certain losses were answers, that certain closures were deliverance, and that Allah has never deprived you, He has purified you. But often you don't see this liberation right away, because the pain doesn't go away suddenly. It transforms. It becomes wisdom, calm, a new lucidity. It is proof that your heart has adapted to the light after surviving the darkness. What you thought was an end was actually a transfer. Allah has taken something from your life, and in return, He has given you a strength you would never have had otherwise. But you don't recognize it right away, because it's still raw, still silent, still fragile. And then, one day, you relive a similar situation. Someone hurts you, life tests you again. But this time, you react differently. You don't collapse. You don't scream. You observe, you understand, you smile inwardly. Because you know you've been through worse before, and that Allah has already healed you of it. This moment is living proof that the case is closed, that your soul has passed the test, and that it no longer needs to relive the same pain to learn the same lesson. What you feel is an invisible liberation. A weight you didn't even know you could carry has lifted. You breathe more slowly. You speak more softly. You think more deeply. It's not weakness. It's peace. The peace of one who has understood that everything taken from them was not a punishment but a purification. The peace of one who knows that Allah never closes a file without a reason, and that behind every closure lies a higher opening. And yet, sometimes you still wonder, is it really over? Won't I fall back into this pain? But then, heaven answers you, not with words, but with that calm, almost sacred feeling that suddenly fills you when you think of everything you've overcome. It's not the end. It's a new beginning. But for now, your soul doesn't know it yet. You know that moment when everything collapses? Not slowly, not gently, brutally, as if life decides to flip a switch and turn off the light. You look around you, and everything that seemed solid crumbles. Faces change, connections break, reference points disappear. You no longer recognize anything, not others, not the world, not even yourself. It's as if everything you had built with hope is disintegrating in your hands. And in your head, a single question echoes. Why now? Why me? But what you don't know at that moment is that it is precisely now that your story takes an invisible turn. Because Allah, in His wisdom, never lets a life collapse without hiding meaning within it. And what you call loss, He calls reconstruction. This moment of rupture is the moment when the lie of your attachment is shattered. You don't know it yet, but you were clinging to things that were slowly consuming you. You fought to preserve bonds, situations, dreams that your soul could no longer bear. You thought it was your role to hold on, to repair, to persist. But Allah watched you knock on a door He had already sealed, and then He does what you would never have dared to do yourself. He puts an end to it, not to punish you, but to save you. You cry, you struggle, you resist. But in truth, it is He who frees you from what imprisoned you without you realizing it. There are attachments that Allah tears from your heart because they distance you from your true destination. Relationships. He breaks because they made you forget who you were meant to become. Plans. He thwarts because they diverted you from the path He chose for you. But you only see the break. You see the pain, the confusion, the loss of control. You see everything you lose, but not yet what you gain. And that's what breaking is. It's a cry that tears at you, but it purifies you. A cry that tears away illusions one by one. It's the moment when Allah says to your weary soul, enough. You won't experience this again. You understand, and when He says this, the world around you begins to rearrange itself. Slowly, silently, as if life were catching its breath after the storm. The things you thought you'd lose forever are beginning to find meaning again. But not in the same form, not with the same faces, not with the same heart, because now that heart is no longer the same. It has been broken, polished, cleansed. It has tasted helplessness, and it is in this helplessness that it has finally recognized the strength of Allah. You see, breaking is not destruction, it's spiritual surgery. Allah never destroys a heart without extracting something that should no longer be there. He cuts, He removes, He cleans. And it hurts, yes. Because what He removes is what you believed to be you. But look closely. How many times has your heart betrayed you by making you love what hurt you? How many times have you prayed for something to remain, while that thing slowly made you forget your Creator, and yet you persisted, so He acted in your place? What you are experiencing is not chaos. It is a correction, a realignment, a rewriting. The pain you feel is not the end of a cycle. It is the work of a heart that Allah is rebuilding. And to do that, He must first break everything. What you call losing everything is often the exact moment when Allah takes away what was preventing you from seeing Him fully. And when everything collapses, He shows you the one thing that never collapses, Himself. You see, some people think they have lost everything, when in reality, they have just encountered the truth for the first time. They understand that their worth wasn't in what they owned, nor in those they loved, nor even in their plans, but in their connection with the One who never changes. And when you reach that point, when there's nothing left to hold on to, you discover a freedom you never imagined. A strange, paradoxical peace. Because you have nothing left to defend, nothing left to prove, nothing left to save. You just have to be. And let Allah do what He has always known how to do. Heal, rebuild, guide. But this moment, this inner fracture, this loss of bearings, it's not easy to get through. It makes your ego scream. It makes your spirit tremble. It makes you feel like everything is going out. Yet, in this total darkness, something divine is ignited within you. A spark that nothing can ever extinguish. A light that no longer depends on others, no longer on the world, no longer on your plans. A light born from the very rupture. And it is at that moment that your soul understands that what you believed to be the end was in reality the exact point where mercy began to manifest itself. What if everything you believed to be a loss was actually a deliverance? What if everything you begged Allah to give you back was precisely what He had to take away to save you? Have you ever considered that maybe you haven't been forgotten, but simply protected from what your heart was no longer meant to love? What if this silence, this absence, this emptiness you feel today was subtle evidence that heaven has answered you, but in a different way? You say you don't understand what's happening to you. You say everything seems unclear, unstable, unfair, but have you taken the time to listen to what your soul has been whispering to you all along? What it's trying to tell you when everything around you becomes too noisy, it says, it wasn't a rejection, it was a redirection. She said, it wasn't a punishment, it was a reminder. What if every time you thought Allah was saying no to you, He simply said, not there, not like this, not with them. You see, sometimes what you call delay is actually preservation. What you call lack is protection. And what you call an end is a transition. But human beings don't like transitions. They force them to let go, to trust without knowing where they're going. And it is precisely in this uncertain space between loss and rebirth that the greatest dialogue of your entire existence takes place. The one between your soul and its creator. You ask him, why did you take from me what I loved? And your soul gently replies, because what you loved was taking the place of the one who has always loved you. You ask him, why did you make me wait so long? And your soul whispers, because you weren't yet ready to receive what you asked for without losing its meaning. You see, your soul knows things your mind refuses to admit. It knows that divine delays are never refusals. It knows that separations are often purifications. And above all, it knows that there is nothing more dangerous than obtaining something too soon, before your heart is ready to carry it without losing itself. But humans want to understand everything immediately. They want to explain everything, justify everything, measure everything. They forget that some answers are not meant for reason, but for transformation. And Allah, in His mercy, teaches you to accept without understanding, to feel without demanding, to trust, even in the dark. What if your pain was actually Allah's way of bringing you back to yourself? What if what you call a scar was the signature of deliverance? What if that heaviness in your chest was a sign that your heart is healing, slowly, silently, under His hand? Because yes, sometimes you don't need a miracle. You don't need a spectacular sign. You just need a divine verdict. Oh, it's over from on high. A decree your soul feels before you even hear it, and suddenly, everything changes. The faces that hurt you become distant. The memories stop burning. The places where you were hurting lose their echo. You pass through the same places, but you are no longer the same. You don't know when it happened. Maybe one night, between two prayers. Maybe one morning, for no reason. But suddenly, you breathe differently. You feel a strange peace, not total, not perfect, but enough to understand that something inside you has closed, permanently. You still search for the pain, but it no longer responds. You want to revive the memory, but it no longer has the same color. It's as if your heart has received a silent order. It's over. Don't hold on to it anymore. And the more you move forward, the more you realize that the real miracle isn't that things change around you, but that you, within them, have changed. You are no longer a slave to the hurt. You no longer need life to apologize. You no longer wait for validation from those who broke you. Because you have finally understood that healing is not a repair of the past, but a new birth. The past no longer belongs to you. Pain no longer has a place. You have become another version of yourself, a version that only hardship could reveal. And your soul tells you, once again, with the gentle voice of certainty, you won't go through this again. It's over. But be careful. This is not the end. This is simply the moment when your soul begins to learn a new language, that of serenity. A language that only those who have suffered deeply can understand. A language that the world cannot hear, but that heaven recognizes with every beat of your heart. And while you still think you are seeking peace, it is already there, discreet, resting upon you, like a divine response whispered to your weary soul. Watch a sunrise after a long night. You never see the exact moment when darkness flees. There is no sound, no signal, no visible boundary between night and light. And yet, everything changes. The air becomes milder, the silence more alive, the shadows lighter. This is Allah's mercy. It makes no announcement. It doesn't try to surprise you. It settles gently, like a breeze on a weary heart. You don't see it coming. You only feel it when it's already here. There have been nights so long you thought they would never end. Nights when your prayers seem to be lost in the void. Nights when you ask yourself, will this pain be my companion until I die? But then, without warning, the sky began to change color. The darkness didn't disappear all at once. It simply withdrew, humbly, as if knowing its role was over. This is how Allah heals. Not always in an instant, but silently, in the folds of your daily life. One morning, you open your eyes, and the world no longer has the same taste. The same places, the same faces, the same wounds, but a different perspective. Because you are no longer the same person. You walked through fire without realizing it. You survived storms you thought were inevitable. And now you are standing at peace, not because life has become easier, but because your heart has become truer. You understand then that the ordeal hasn't destroyed you. It has revealed you. It burned away what wasn't you, erased what held you back, and returned you to what was essential: your connection with your Creator. Every tear shed in the night carved a space within you where light can now enter. Every painful silence was a delayed response. Every apparent loss hid a rebirth to come. And now, here you are, in this inner dawn, where your soul, still fragile, is learning to breathe again. You no longer feel this need to understand everything, nor this impatience to control everything. You move slowly, but this slowness is like you. It is peace after war. It is light after collapse. Look at your heart. It no longer beats to the rhythm of fear, but of faith. What you believed to be the end was simply the shedding of your soul. Allah stripped you to rebuild you, and every wound you bear has become a silent verse engraved within you, a living reminder of His presence, even in what you feared. The day is slowly breaking, and with it the truth you refuse to see. It is not the world that has become clear. It is you. Your gaze has become deeper, your heart wiser, your step lighter. You now recognize the signs of Allah where you once saw only chance. You understand that what was taken from you was not an injustice, but a divine adjustment. And without you realizing it, heaven has already written, your case is closed. You will not go through this again. It is over. Not because you will no longer have trials, but because this trial has accomplished its mission. She transformed you, elevated you, refined you. She brought you back to where your heart should rest, in absolute trust. Day breaks, and you realize that you no longer need everything you once believed indispensable. You have learned to live without certainties, to love without attachment, to hope without demands. This is spiritual maturity, not an absence of pain, but a new understanding of the meaning of pain. You no longer wait for things to change to be at peace. You learn to be at peace even when things don't change. And in this peace, you hear something, not a voice, not a word, but a certainty that descends into your heart like a soft light. You were never alone. Even in the dark, I held you. Even in the silence, I answered you. You understand then that everything you've been through wasn't an accident, but a divine scripture, perfectly calibrated for your soul. Every detour, every fall, every weight has brought you closer to the center, that place within you where faith no longer depends on anything external. And as the sun slowly rises in the sky, your soul bows, not under the weight of pain, but under gratitude. You smile for no reason. You look at the sky, and your silence becomes a prayer. No more words, no more questions, no more waiting, just a heart at peace, aware of having survived the night. And perhaps, just at that moment, somewhere in the invisible world, an angel writes these words on your closed file. He understood. She understood. The ordeal has fulfilled its purpose. And the day continues to dawn, gently, slowly, as an eternal reminder that the light of Allah always returns, even for souls who thought they would never see it again. If you feel this strange calm within you, this emptiness that no longer hurts, then understand this. Allah has delivered you. It wasn't a loss, it was a liberation. Your soul has been rewritten, your path realigned. Where you were before this ordeal no longer exists. So now don't go back to where Allah took you. Move forward, even slowly, but move forward with confidence. Your case is closed. Your pain no longer has power over you. And if these words spoke to you, don't keep them to yourself. Share this message, because maybe someone else somewhere is also waiting to hear. It's over. You won't go through this again.